Good morning, everybody. Anybody? Hello? This is the first time I've ever just hopped on here and went live without telling people ahead of time. So I am practicing doing things that are uncomfortable to break out of old stories. So here I am, just hopping on here randomly with my morning coffee. And yeah, I had a couple things maybe to say. We'll see. Got my hair in a pony, which is also something I don't normally do. So, I'm everything I'm sharing on my channel, I'm living myself. I've already lived it in a couple iterations. The first was athletic career, the second with my romantic dynamic in my life and pattern. And now I'm getting to practice all these things at a deeper level with how I show up in the world. So, experience, I read, I can't remember where I read it, but experience is one of the biggest things that can help our brain rewire because, we have this outdated experience that once happened to us. And let me know if you can hear me, by the way. I didn't do a sound check. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. I think it's going. I think it's going because my little indicator is, a little indicator's moving, so if you can't hear me, say something. Even though you can't hear me asking, "Can you hear me?" Um, I really hope you can. But, so experience is one of the most powerful ways that we can override our beliefs, because if you think about it, we've had this past experience, and then also wave hello and where you're tuning in from. And I think that oh, Oh, hello. Well, happy cooking. Let me know what you're cooking. I'm really relieved to know that you can hear me because I'm like, oh God. I think that happened on the last one. And I mean, talk about experience where I have done however many lives I've done. And then one thing happened, but that uncomfortable or painful or negative experience is the one that stands up. Because it's like, oh no, I'm going to be embarrassed, or something bad's going to be going to happen to me. I'm going to be rejected. So you literally have these strong chemicals that pulse through your body to remember that. Watch out for that. That could be bad. So, hello, ooh, Houston, Texas. One of my best friends lives there. I'll actually be heading back to Texas at the first of the year for a couple months to visit family and have a little bit of a long visit because I've been gone from Texas for a couple years now. In Tampa, Florida. Oh my gosh. What is the hang on, I need to clear my throat. Okay, there we go. I went when I was young. I still am. When I was younger, I went to Florida with my family, Tampa, when I was doing a track meet. That is where all vacations stemmed from after the age of like 11. But Tampa, they have some sort of big like not amusement park, but it's like a zoo with rides, and that's all I remember. It was a really good time. But every day at 2 p.m. it rained. So anyway, hello, and I hope you're cooking something wonderful. I guess it's lunchtime. Um, yeah, exactly. You know why I left because of the heat. So, but now it's like I'm trading spaces in the Pacific Northwest. It's about to get the sun's going to leave us for about 6 months. So I'm like, maybe I'll go where the sun is. But anyway, um, I'll get back to that, and then I'll come back to the questions. But so, okay, you have this negative experience happening in your life from childhood, from a certain time of your life, very negative. This, especially when it happens between, birth and 6 years old, 7 years old, it's your introduction to life. Oh, this is how I get treated. This is how people are to me. This is how I'm disrespected. This is how my boundaries are crossed. This is how my boundaries are not, acknowledged. So you get used to that and you find more and more of it. So for you to break free of it, experiences are going to be huge because, yes, you had these experiences that were valid, that made you feel these ways when you were younger and are very reasonable to have. And as you start using your adult mind to make these things from inside of you that are unconscious, they say implicit, You pull them out through conscious awareness and make them explicit, and then you can process them. When you process them in the current day, you can put yourself in situations where you can respond differently. And that's literally how you can just start really gaining speed on belief changes and all that. So, okay. Yeah, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. The weather is dreamy and fun until it's like 3 months in and it's March, and the sun's still nowhere to be found, and you're like, "This is supposed to be sunny. This is spring." I think for me, the first winter I was here, my birthday's in April, and it snowed, and I'm like, "What is this?" And it was actually cold and rainy until May. And I was like, the year is almost halfway over. We've got to speed this up." So I've had different experiences with the winter. So I'm still not sure how it works. Okay, it's crazy. At 46, my dreams are still screaming at me. My self concept is at my dreams are still screaming to me what my self concept is, but I find it's such a challenge to change it. Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. It's valid because that part of you is in self-protection. You can say self-sabotage, but like there is some, I love looking up etymology. That's something my mom taught me to do. She's a Sagittarius rising for all those that like love astrology, and my moon's in Sagittarius. But and then my dad's Venus is in Sagittarius, but this like learning, especially to oh my gosh, I just see, let's go Oilers. What is it? What was his name? Moon? There was a player that was something something Moon, or his first name and then his last name was Moon. But I remember that as a kid. Um, but yeah, if sabotage, I think is a really misunderstood mechanism, and as far as I'm concerned, because I used to think, oh my gosh, if I cared about myself, if I loved myself, if I was worthy, then I wouldn't do these things, or something like that. But it's not because you hate yourself or you're like you're bully. That part of you was like, oh my gosh, I love you so much that I want you to avoid that thing where there's associated pain, or there's an association where you won't get your needs met and there'll be isolation. So, for instance, a really easy one is like, if you were very boisterous as a kid, if you love to, say your opinion or share things or learn, and, you were a know it all. Oh my God, Warren Moon, thank you. Yes, I remember him. Um, but, if you just happen to love knowledge and love sharing, but your parents had some sort of issue, or your caregiver, and they told you you were wrong for doing it. And when you did it, they gave you the cold shoulder, you got in trouble, maybe you got things taken away from you. What do you think your treatment of yourself would be around the thing that, you've had experiences that takes you away from connection? You would stop doing it. And Gabor Mate says, trauma is not so much about what happened to you, it's about what happened inside of you because of that outside thing. This is why we can have two people in a similar situation, but respond to that situation completely differently. So if you can start to say, okay, what do I fear? What really bad thing do I fear would happen? And I forget who says this. Is it Allie? I can't tell. Sometimes I can never tell with YouTube screen names. So I can't really, I'm like, my older eyes. So for you who's wanting to chase your dreams, really starting to get in there. Okay, I have this dream. I want to be this way in the world. What? Oh, okay. I love it. April, smart, clever. Um, I mean, the symbolism of that too is interesting about a backward, and I know that this is like just putting it out there, but sometimes I find it interesting to look at kind of subtle external things to see maybe if there's some unconscious stuff going on, where your unconscious is giving you these little clues, and you're like, can you just write me a letter? University, it doesn't have to be all these like, codes and whatnot. But could you show up as yourself? Did you have to edit? Did you have to ease in? Did you have to show up backwards so that the people around you, if their self concept was too small, you had to meet that in order to get what you needed at that time? What you needed was connection. Like, it is vital. So you will self abandon. You'll say, oh, can't do that. I got to show up this way. And potentially April, maybe it is. I have to show up backwards. I have to show up in a way that's not authentically me so that I can be seen by them in a way that's not offensive. But if you can start to see what you did as a kid wasn't wrong, it wasn't, and again, I know that that might not necessarily be your story or your situation, but anyone listening, just to take this concept, okay, if my parents had their own stuff, my caregivers, and I thought that I was just too much or I was wrong in how I was showing up, then I must be wrong. Because you also have to understand that there's a power, an in what is it? An unbalanced power dynamic. Obviously, you're a child, they're an adult. But what we unconsciously do is say, oh, what they're doing is superior. They know best because they know about money. They've got this house. They can cook food. We're new at life. We don't know what's going on. But that doesn't mean emotionally and psychologically and spiritually that they are at that level to be like, oh, but we did what we did to survive. So if you can just start saying, like, okay, maybe my authentic way to show up isn't wrong. Maybe I can learn to embrace it and learn to protect myself. Because that's another thing, April, is maybe you feel unconsciously deep down there that if you do your dream, you can't keep yourself safe. So if you can start to say, oh my God, okay, I can understand that. We're not trying to shame or guilt ourselves, but like, oh my gosh, okay, look at all these things that I've done that have taken care of myself. And I've proven over and over and over that I got me. And I'm now the adult who's here to keep me safe. If you can just start putting that in there, it will help you shift your perspective. And the more and more you shift that perspective, the more that old idea and old experience will stand in your way. I don't know if that helps or not, but let me know. And if anyone else has any questions, let me know. Okay. Oh my God. I've noticed that I willingly and eagerly minimize myself to make other people feel better. Okay. There you go. The idea that it's your responsibility to emotionally caretake other people. When you realize, oh my, whoops. Okay. It gives you a more of a understanding of like, wow, what a badass kid. Like I was like holding all these things. So I've got a lot of strength, but I've also got a lot of distortion about what's mine and what's others. And if everyone in the group gave you all of our grocery bags, even if we just had two each, and now you're holding everything, well, suddenly you can't even get what you need because you're holding everyone else's shit, not understanding, oh, that's not mine. What is mine and what is theirs? Did somebody ask me for that? Or do I automatically assume I got to take care of it? So, yeah, totally understandable. I mean, I feel you on that. This is stuff I had to learn. The only reason I know about it is because I over duty, as my mentor says, where it's like, oh, there's an issue. I'll take care of it. Well, did anyone ask? Is that necessary? Am I abandoning what's good for me and how I can show up and help others in the world because I'm so preoccupied with fixing that thing or not offending them so they'll love and accept me? Because that's, part of that ABC awareness of the story. Oh, okay. I feel like if I don't fix things here, I'm a bad person. Okay. So first is awareness of it. Second is breathing. Okay. 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 I'm scared that, okay, like I'm scared that I'm going to be rejected, but I know that old story. I'm rejecting myself. So I'm going to make a new choice that rather than take the energy outside of me, I'm going to keep it. Oh God, I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not helpful. I feel like no one's going to like me. Okay, maybe I'll journal. Maybe I'll go for a walk. Maybe I'll call a friend for support. That's how you break out of that pattern. But you got to get really clear on the story in the moment. So first you got to get clear on the story outside the experience, because it's like you practice for the game. You don't practice for the game in the game, if that makes sense. And I'm talking sports. Warren Moon did not step onto the football field and just say, okay, let's do this. He spent a lot of time practicing, training, so that when he was in that moment, he would have those tools and skills ready for that opportunity. So I hope that helps. Okay. People would make me feel like I was too much. Yeah. Okay. So if I had a pitcher of coffee and I wanted to put it in here, I'd be like, whoa, 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 that's too much. No, the coffee cup can't contain it. The coffee cup is limited. The pitcher of coffee is not too much. It's simply the vessel can't receive it or understand it, or it makes it feel uncomfortable. Obviously, now I'm talking about people. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the coffee cup has feelings. Who am I to judge? I don't understand if it does, but I support you if you do. Um, but yeah, what if it were true? I don't know if it's Eva or Ava. Whatever one was right, disregard the other one. What if it were true that you weren't too much, that the emotional capacity or maturity of your environment was too small? And just the same as like, there's no judgment in that. Okay. If we all went out for a run and somebody runs a lot, their aerobic capacity is going to be more than mine. I like to lift weights and do short bursts of energy, but long term exercise, stamina exercise has never been my strong suit. Quick, bursts of energy, I'm good at that. But if that's the case, my aerobic capacity is too small. It's not as big as that, but that's fine. That's where I am. But if I said it's too much for you to run faster, you need to slow down. Well, that's adjusting somebody else's unique expression in the world according to me, which, I think you can start to see, okay, whoa, hang on a second. Maybe there's another perspective here, which is going to free you up from carrying all that shit and then showing up as that small energy in the moment. Oh, good, John. I love to hear that. As a reformer, reforming people pleaser. Amen. I feel like we need to start a whole subcategory, um, or maybe t-shirts. Recovering people pleaser, reforming people pleaser. I found it quite thrilling to break out of that and be more assertive when challenged or having to stand up. I'm enjoying being selfish in a nice way. It's not being selfish. I mean, I've thought about this before. So it's kind of like, the idea that you need to be selfless, and I know that's not the word you use, but like selfless is not like a good virtue. That means you have no self. And if you have no self, you can't connect with other people. And I think that, it's either be selfless or, selfish. And it's like, I don't think those are the two options, and like breaking out of the ideology that if you show up for yourself, you're selfish. Okay. This also brings up something else that I had mentioned, like maybe I wasn't on a roll with it last year, but like the golden rule, where they always say, treat other people like you want to be treated. Okay. Like, not saying that's wrong or bad. However, treat yourself. I think the real golden rule that if we live by this would dramatically make things a lot better. Treat yourself like you want other people to treat you. um, I think that as I get older and as I see different dynamics, people's disrespect to themselves, people's self abuse, and again, I'm never saying that somebody outside of you physically harms you, that, oh, you did it. Never. That is never the case. How can you start seeing how maybe that respect for you, that sacredness of your own energy is getting compromised because you're living through the lenses of somebody else's ideas, expectations, judgments, and so on. And before, you had to do that as a kid. Absolutely. And now you can see, oh, okay, maybe that's not how I stay safe now. Um, oh no, this is a rando. This is the first time I've not said, hey, I'm going to do a live stream. I'm just going to do it and see who shows up. So here I am doing it. One of my big things is like, the fear. I'm an anxiously attached, recovering anxiously attached person. So I've helped heal that. Break out of the idea that what I do externally is how I get my self worth. So that was step one, and step two is learning how to relate to people differently and learn where my self abandonment was. That was my relationships and kind of phase. I don't know how many phases there are, by the way, but I just know that this is like the third one. But it's how I'm like my capacity to be seen by a lot of people, and having self trust in myself to know that I can keep me safe, and trusting those who see me as well, which is, this is where I am. This is the work I'm doing. So everything I'm sharing with you, I'm going through that process. Just, we're all doing it in different ways. So this is me practicing. Okay, it's a little uncomfortable that I'll push live and no one shows up, and like, okay, well, I'm going to show up for me, and I'm going to do this scary thing or nerve wracking thing, or thing where there's a little fear associated. And when I start choosing me above what I assume will happen because of past experiences, when I start showing up and making new choices, which is I'm not gonna, oh, if I go online now and I don't give them, no one's gonna show up. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna see what happens. And now I have disconfirming experiences, which is meaning that it's showing me there's other possibilities than the past. And that's all, like doing that over and over and over will tremendously change your life. Um, okay. Creating boundaries from a place of abundance has been my work. Leaning into triggers and letting it dissipate. Wow. Yeah. I mean, a manifestation is going to be I was reading this astrology book the other day, and it's like one of my life lessons or life practices is like seeing that everyone's path is going to the same mountaintop. Everyone's going to look differently. So it's not this or that. It's like, how can I help people burn away the illusion that um, you're not, everyone else is going to get good stuff and you're not, or, that's where I'm at. So it's been exciting because I feel like part of me is like, oh God, I can see. Um, Childhood ideas that I had and letting those go. And it's just so beautiful and powerful. And I feel like that is helping me to connect and have like a new um, energizer or like a new fire lit. So here we are together. Um, but that's a great point about creating boundaries. For me, boundaries were and sometimes are scary. If I say I'm not okay with this, if I say this is too much, if I say I don't want this, that other person, maybe they won't want to be in my life. Maybe they're not interested, And I heard Gabor Mate say this the other day. It was like a Instagram, like a 30-second clip. And he said, yeah, that can be painful. But what is more painful? You losing that friendship that wasn't really a friendship, somebody who's not respecting boundaries, somebody who's not interested in what causes you pain or distress and working with you with that. And I now that's different than if you're wanting somebody else to be the source of your soothing. Oh, I'm feeling jealous. I'm scared you're going to leave me, soothe me. And sometimes that is okay. Where, I have those moments where I need a little reassurance. I'm having a hard time. Okay. But when you make somebody else responsible solely for it, obviously that gets really dysfunctional. And that goes back to carrying those bags with April, that idea, not just you, April, but everybody doing that. So boundaries can be very hard because the perception is if I put up a boundary, I'm going to be isolated. I'm going to create my wall of, I'm going to be in my castle. I got my boundaries and I'm all alone. But no one. Oh, and by the way, I can't. It's just letting me know that there's gonna be an ad, and I can't actually control that. I'm gonna say skip. YouTube let me know that it's going to put ads in lives now, and I'm like, "Okay." So anyway, if you do see more ads on videos or in these live streams, I tried to do it before and after, and I don't know, they whatever. It is what it is, and letting it go and just being, and choosing where to put your energy, is what I'm doing with it. Because you release that resistance, and that resistance creates more of the tension that you're trying to avoid, but if you just deal with it, you can move forward. But, yeah, I totally feel you on the boundary creating. Um, the perception is I'll be all alone, but really what happens is you start saying yes to you and no to people who aren't a yes to you. And the people who are a yes to you will like that boundary because it will feel safe. Like, oh, thank you for letting me know this upsets you, or you were. And I had a friend somewhat recently, like within a year, they let me know about something and I had no idea. I had no idea that some of my behavior, which I thought wasn't hurtful or, and it wasn't like this way, it was like more of me being more distant or, whatever. And it was just so nice to understand, wow, that's your experience. Obviously I'll respect what I need to do. And, oh, I could have communicated better. I could have let you know that you're important to me and I might be a little bit distant. I'm going through some stuff. So it's just so helpful because really what you're wanting is a deeper connection, and when you're vulnerable and authentic, that's when you can connect, and that's the scariest part. That if I show up vulnerable, if I show up authentically, I'm going to be rejected. But if you can hold you in that and start creating confidence, the root of the word confidence, the etymology is trust. Can I trust that there's a bigger takeaway than whatever that person says? Okay, they don't like, okay, I love me. I think, and that took me a long time to do. And I think maybe it's a different word for you right now. Maybe it's value or respect. You prioritize your experience. You no longer want to expose yourself to painful or disrespectful behavior. That would be self love. But, it's okay for now that you don't go straight at it. So just some, things to think about. I'm glad that the stories are helpful. Sometimes I'm like, it feels like it's the same pattern, but honestly, for me, it was the same pattern for like, 30 plus years. So, um, yeah, I wrote an email recently to my email list, and it was talking about, and maybe I'll share it in here. I don't know if all y'all are in. I don't go through my list and say, oh, okay, I don't have it memorized. So I don't know. Maybe some of y'all are in part of my email list, and some of you aren't. If you are wanting that, it's go to my about section, and I don't know. I'm like, can I do it now? Let's see. Oh gosh, this is like Mission Impossible. It's not, but dun 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 dun. Oh, let's see. I'm gonna do the. Okay, let's see if I can do this. If you're wanting to join my email list. But anyway, the whole point of this is I shared a story recently with my email list about, like, I'd never told this story on a video or really ever. It just kind of popped up. I'm like, okay, me being authentically seen and more vulnerable. I can tell even looking back when I first started, even last year, specifically when I moved up here to the Pacific Northwest. Oh my gosh, I was just like, hello, just like so scared of what someone might say. So scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing and I'm going to be rejected. So scared that I'm going to say something and then somebody in the comments is going to say something mean, or they're going to point out something about me. Like, the fear was so high. And looking back, I'm like, wow, that took a lot of courage. Because to me now, it's helped me move past that, where that's not really a fear. If someone says that, I'm not going to take it personal. Um, to a certain degree, obviously, like, I'm going to have a boundary. But if somebody just spazzes out, it's like, okay, I can tell that that's probably not about me personally. And if it is, pick my battles. But this huge fear, and if y'all go back even 6 months ago, like, you can just see that there's like tones in my voice. There's just fear. And it honestly feels very therapeutic sharing this with you now. So trying to get back, or trying to release, really, any part of me that was like a defense mechanism out of fear. Like, this little girl in me is like, I'm afraid that if I really show up as I am, you might not like me. And like, it is really therapeutic. I appreciate y'all listening, because it's like, wow, I can feel a lot of pain there still. That if I really show up, if I mess up, if I don't do it right, if I don't say the right words, if I don't make it interesting enough, you're gonna leave. You're not gonna love me. You're not gonna be interested. So, it's just like, okay, where do I want to put my energy there? Do I want to go chase, or do I want to say, wow, thank you, little Abby, current Abby, for saying this in front of, everyone? Because that's really what is my internal experience. And it's like, wow, okay. Well, every day I'm showing up for me. I click live. I say yes to me. That's just more and more momentum. And I am seeing, there was a 2023 there's a lot of internal, interpersonal stuff in my life, that it was a very shadow working year. It has been. And I'm like, let's just say that it's, we're on the up and up. Can we, can we just lower the lessons for the rest of the year? But there was just a lot of, it felt like door closing and like things dying or shrinking. And I was like working really hard and trying really hard. And then recently been working and being with myself more, and like realizing things that were self-abandoning that I didn't really know then. And since having that energetic shift and like showing up more for myself, there's been some really positive momentum that's been happening, which I'll tell you a story about. And I realize now, I'm like, there we went on our tangential side story. Um, oh, thank you very much for that. Um, so I'll go back to the story about that I shared in the email. So the story in the email was a memory I had, and I was dating somebody at the time, and it wasn't good. And I'm not saying this because that person, it was the dynamic, a lot of my wounds, and then I met up with other people's wounds, and that's never a fun dance when you don't have the tool. I'm doing my best to share with you so that you'll have them and send you off to go find people to help you dig deeper. Um, but and again, it's always you healing you. Never be confused or deceived about that. It is always you healing you. People outside of you can help give you a little nugget to go inside, and then it's you doing that work. That is your power to always hold. Never give that away. I mean, you can do what you want, but I would suggest, encourage you to do. But anyway, so okay, I'm dating this person, and it's not great. There's been like a bazillion red flags for me that this isn't great for me, that I'm not being respected, that this interaction is not what I'm looking for. Again, not disrespecting that person as a soul, but just like it is what it is, right? Like this is not healthy for me. So we went in with friends to a concert, and I potentially was having some adult cocktails, and that, Trigger City and alcohol, I could tell you probably a laundry list of different stories, and maybe I will, during our time together. But long story long, I was just I wanted this person's attention. I wanted them to, they were being disrespectful at the concert, kind of flirting with somebody else. I'm like, hey, like, this is not right. Hey, and it's like, rather than being like, wow, okay, having some self respect and leaving or, distancing or whatever, I went to them to be like, don't you, I wanted them to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It goes on and on and on. And the email story picked up at me knocking on their door at like 2 a.m. after drinking way too much because I was just so desperate. Like that's what I'm trying to communicate. I was so desperate to be loved and so desperate to like, please, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Even though they're disrespecting me. Um, Oh, if you're welcome, if you're coming into the story, I'm sharing a story that I shared with an email, the email list, which the link is above if you want to join it. But it's basically, kind of some of the lows I've had when I talk about I've been through the ringer in terms of emotional or relational issues. I wasn't like, oh, we didn't work out. Like I was through very toxic relationships. Um, and it was really bad. So, the shift in energy, the shift in dynamic was incredible because of this work that I was taught, that I was helped to do. So there I am knocking on the door, like intensely, 2 a.m. drunk. She finally opens the door. I mean, basically begging this person who had been flirting with somebody else at a concert. Like, no disrespect, she's in her own space. Okay. But where's my self-respect, and not shaming myself in the past, but just like really hurting for her. And then I'm like, hoping, okay, this person, like, what were you doing? Why are you doing that? And then like a lot of mean things were said. And it really, I mean, I was just basically crying and I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up and she's like, it's over, get out. And I looked in the mirror. My eyes are like so puffy and like just, I could barely recognize myself. And in about 2 hours, I was supposed to meet my friends for brunch. Why, you might ask? Because it was my birthday. So, like, having these horrible moments of like that were just strewn with self rejection because I didn't know any other method than in a moment of crisis, in that panic, I need that person. I need that person. So rather than realizing, okay, I need space, I need some comfort, I need to ground, I need to get out of this. I didn't have those skills. And so I just kept repeating, kept repeating, kept repeating, kept reaching outside of me, desperately hoping that that person would say yes, then I would feel better. So, the intensity of my situations was really hard. Um, So yeah. So how do I start all this? Well, I mean, the biggest part is going to be, I would say it's two parts: understanding what story, what repeat pattern. And again, recently I've been talking about this Jungian life because my partner's been listening to it, and I've listened to a couple of them, and I think they're great people. I forget, and then she tells me more about it. I'm like, God, what a great podcast! So maybe I'm not ready for that. I find in my life that things that I'm really interested in that I don't aggressively like go and like consume and get more of. It's like I need like the timing's not right. So maybe in the future. But one of the best quotes I've heard from the couple podcasts I've listened to, and I highly recommend it if you like podcasts. This Jungian Life. There are three Jungian analysts that talk a lot about a lot of different topics, and it's very powerful. But they said if it's hysterical, so think of me knocking, oh God, open the door. Oh, it's like my life depended on it. It felt like when people broke up with me or when the potential for breakup was on the table, it was like I was dying, because there was very, very perceived or physiological, you have what I need. And it's that early on, those wounds that I went through. And again, like I grew up in a very stable, very loving home, but it was what I perceived. That's what was causing these distortions where I showed up in later in life, where I'm like, oh God, please love me. If you don't love me, if you're not with me, like my life's going to be over. I won't have what I need. And it was like physiologically, like it felt like my heart was like being crushed. So understanding what is the story, what is that really intense, for me, everyone's going to leave. I've got to work harder. I've got to impress them. I've got to have a reason that they're in my life. I got to solve all their problems. So for you it might be something different, that if you get close to somebody, it's going to be too painful. They're going to betray you. It could be, a lot of other things. And if you want to share your pattern, or if you want to share how things show up and I can help you work through that to find your pattern, I'm here for it. I've got coffee. I've got y'all. We're having a good time. But I'm like trying to think, refocus on that. Okay, so how to do it. First, you got to get clear on that story. First, you got to get clear on a pattern that physiological makes you respond in a fear state. And this can show up in anxiety for me. Oh God, they haven't texted. What if they're mad at me? Oh God, do they want to break up? Like, beep. It could also show up in comparison. I don't know, maybe they're more interested in this other person. I don't know. You're always comparing the other person. So those are the things like that I have had to work on. And then sometimes they'll still show up, and showing up in a different way for me. And sometimes it still gets me, and then I recognize it and I do the next part. But I do want to list the four parts. So anxiety, comparison, okay, distrust or suspicion. So these are two sides of the same coin. Compare and anxiety comes from an early on dynamic of people in your life were too far away from you emotionally. And so you felt you had to chase them. You had to go after them. If not, you'd be all alone. Okay. So anxiety and comparison, that fear they're going to leave you. So you have to chase after them, or you have to do all this stuff. You have to caretake everyone's feelings, etc. Now, the other side of the coin is suspicion and distrust. So early on in your life, most likely, you had somebody come too close. They crossed a boundary. This could have looked a lot of different ways. It could have been a physical boundary crossing, some kind of sexual assault of some degree. This could also be somebody who was too invasive, even though it wasn't physical. Maybe it was a helicopter parent. Maybe it was somebody who was overly critical. But you want to create space to feel safe. The other side of the coin, so what I'm describing is anxious and avoidant, just very basic. I know that there's other iterations, but I think understanding these two basics can really help you. So what you want to do is, in the moment when you understand your story and that story pops up and you start perceiving that story, oh God, uh, I don't know. Are they going to hurt me if we get close? Do they want something from me? Suspicion, distrust. Oh my gosh, are they going to leave? Oh God, they haven't texted me in a while. Anxiety and comparison. So both of those, in the moment you're losing yourself. You're not rooted. You don't feel that you can take care of yourself. So you're responding like it's 1984, 1995, 2001, whatever that year that your early on wound was imprinted. So in the moment, getting really, ooh, just made it looked a little funny at first. In the moment, getting clear, anxiety, suspicion, distrust, and comparison over and over and over. I had to write these down. I had to write these down. I had to like replay them in my head because I wanted to be aware. Okay, am I in that? Okay, oh, I'm starting to get anxious. Okay, so that's getting to that part is step one. Step two is in the moment. How do you deal with this? Got to be aware of it. Okay, I'm starting to get really anxious. Okay, I'm starting to tell myself I'm really afraid that if I say what I need, they're going to leave me, that I'm asking for too much. Okay, I got to breathe because what you're trying to do is you're trying to settle your nervous system from responding to this kind of imaginary or, predated physiological response because your body's trying to protect you like you're a little kid. And then when you're able to breathe, then you're going to make a new choice. Again, that can be journaling, that can be going for a walk. Going for walks can be really powerful, even though you're not doing much, because you're like when you're walking, unconscious to you and I, your eyes are scanning. And when your eyes are scanning, it's getting fuel from a part of your brain that also fuels your amygdala. So when you're walking, it's reducing the energy that your amygdala has to perceive fear, if that makes sense. Is that making sense? I feel like I need to get my dry erase board out here and start going with it. But so how you do it is you want to get clear on your pattern, start recognizing it in the moment so you can step out, which is what will help you rewire your brain. Those experiences are massive shifts. It's like if you had a scale, the experiences, you're putting it on there and you're starting to show up for yourself, which is going to shift your energy completely. And when you're not in that moment, you can work on dissolving those old beliefs and ideas that if you don't do that, that person's going to leave. If you do trust, somebody's going to betray you. And learning to decipher and you using your discernment to recognize emotional availability. I mean, if that's not a mouthful for Sunday morning, I don't know what is, or afternoon, wherever you are. Is this all making sense? Let me know. I'm also curious if they've done, if any ads have run. Let me know on that too. But yeah, I'm very excited. Can you see this little card right here? For one, let me give you a tour of this room. For one, okay, where do I start? Where do I start? This right here, this globe is really I feel like a Harlem Globetrotter right now. That globe is really special to me because this globe, not one like it, but this actual one, when I was a little kid, I was homeschooled until I was 16. I would spin that globe as a kid and then, do the stop and point to it and spin the globe and point like hours, not like at a time, but so many times I would do that. I mean, I was procrastinating because I didn't want to do schoolwork, but eventually I did. But it's just so cool to like have this now in videos. I've used it in other videos too, like in the background. And then this is really special. My partner made me this card for our anniversary recently. She does watercoloring, and it's really beautiful, and I love it. And oh, and then I made this is one of my favorite things I've ever made. It's my first metal sculpture, so I hand welded. Well, I mean, it was a piece of metal, but it didn't have ends on it, so I welded the ends on it, and then I welded it all together. So yeah, and then I always leave my YouTube stuff out, so I'm always ready when inspiration strikes, even though that's not how I make videos anymore. It's more of a process, but I'm getting better at like where I need to be with the process. Ideally, to put out more information that maybe in a certain way I say it, it can help you connect deeper to it and then use that in your life. So that's these are actually little pictures. That's a picture of my mom by the Mediterranean Sea. And then that's a picture, I know you can't see it, but that's a picture of my dad, probably when he was like, I don't even know, like maybe in his 20s and he's on a dirt bike. So I love it. It's like, I guess those pictures, I never thought about it, but I'll share with you here. I think I like them because it's like, I can definitely feel that little kid, the inner child of my parents in those pictures. So anyway, that's a tour of my room. And then this is a picture of my best friends, and then my best friend, and these are my American best friends, I guess. And another really wonderful bestie I have in New Zealand gave me that when I was there. So it's some kiwi birds. So yeah. Did you ask for the tour? No. Did I give it to you? Absolutely. So if you have any more questions, I am here. Does anyone have any other questions you want to know? Oh, how do I start? Okay. Well, yeah. The starting also too is going to be like, there's not like you have to do one, two, three. It's like, that's how it happened for me. But, starting to go in, starting to understand who did you feel you needed to be loved would probably be a good place to start. Oh, thank you, April. The unsolicited tour. um, but yeah, who did you feel you needed to be as a kid to be loved would probably be a really powerful place to start. Um, and again, don't force it. And that could be just something you ask yourself. That could be something you ask yourself before you go to sleep. The subconscious world can really be powerful. And it talks to us in our dreams. I'm not the best at it. My partner's incredible in terms of getting that insight from our dreams and remembering it very vividly. I get what I need when I need it. It's not. I'm like, hello, hello, hello. Can you give me more info? And it's probably like, I give it to you every night. Why aren't you listening? Okay, I imagine lots of kids of divorced parents have this issue, even if they consciously know they weren't at fault. Yeah, and I mean, it would be worth it to, and this is where I would heavily suggest like a somatic therapist to like help you release, because the somatic therapist, especially, there's different modalities for it. The person I worked with did specifically chiropractic and they did acupuncture, some of the main ones, because the body is keeping and holding this energy. And just the same, it's like if you're a little kid and I gave you a 100-pound box or, like a 45 kilo, for those of you who aren't in the US, it's too much for you. You drop it. So what we do, since we can't hold that, we don't have tools to process something really heavy, for instance, the divorced parents, we put it in the basement. You can't deal with that now, we'll get it later. But later never comes because unless we say, okay, hang on, I forgot there could be stuff in the basement. Let me go get somebody to help me with this, which, the therapist isn't there and they know better than you. They're just there to help you with maybe a little light. And when they work with your body, it can release a lot of information, a lot of energy, a lot of awareness to your conscious awareness. And you can start processing those aspects or those perspectives that are stuck in that limitation or that distortion of yourself. And when you can release that, it is a radically powerful thing. So that's why, my goal is to help you expand your conscious awareness so that you can start becoming aware of the pattern and begin to break it out and then understand what other kind of people can help you do more specific work one-on-one. Because I do think there's a huge physiological aspect to this. And at first, when I started, I had no money. Like there was zero way I could afford it. And basically what I did was I just would get the money. I'd said yes, and then I paid. And then, the person I work with, he is very understanding and compassionate. So it was kind of like I had the space to, if I, make an appointment and I had no idea how to get the next payment. And, with that kind of understanding of like, I don't know if I can afford this and moving forward with that. And it just seemed, from my experience, and I know I've heard other people say it, it's like, wow, I wish that happened to me. But I did have these experiences where it's like, I showed up and I said yes and did what I could when I could and didn't look to see, okay, well, how can I solve these problems? You don't know what you don't know. And as your perspective starts to shift, as you do the work current day and in the present moment, what you can see will change because your mind, what you're seeing right now, what you're aware of, how you solve problems right now, it is based on the constructs of beliefs, opinions, perspectives of what is real. And we're not invalidating what you've been through because that's real, but it being a fact of how you're supposed to be treated or what you're worth, that's where you got to free yourself. And that happens current day. When you try to project into the future, how are you going to get all the answers? how are you going to deal with the 58th step on the whatever floor? Like, you don't know until you're in the moment, and then in the moment it's way easier to figure out. So that's kind of how it's happened for me, that I didn't have like, "Oh, I'm so loaded with all this money. Oh yeah, it's easy to say yes." It was very scary for me to start working with somebody. I was terrified of what that person would find in me. Like, for a year I didn't go to this person because I was scared. And then at a certain point it was like, I'd rather know what's inside than keep repeating this cycle. Whatever I find is going to be less painful than what I'm going through. And realizing me not looking did not change its effect on me. Like, me being unconscious to my pain that this pattern's put me in doesn't mean I'm in less pain. I'm just in the pain without a choice. So when you start working and you really dig in, you at least have a choice about your pain to start breaking out of it. But not looking at it, I have compassion because that's where I started. And a lack of decision is still a decision, which is really annoying, and it's true. So, yeah. Um, but yeah, who did you feel like, to going off the divorce thing, who did you feel you were? What did you feel family was? What did you feel? And some of this could be, okay, it's not my fault, but now I'm limited. Now I have to be this person here and that person here. Maybe emotionally caretaking. I can't talk about mom to dad because that might really hurt his feelings, to know that mom's happy or we had this really great experience. So you might feel guilty to experience connection. So even though you might not take fault for your parents' divorce, you might take fault that you need to emotionally navigate. That would be like a parentified child, in a way, that it's your responsibility to make your parents, to not upset your parents. That would be a huge limiting perspective based on very real experiences. And not even to say that you didn't have to do that, but can you see, oh, okay, maybe my parents weren't emotionally mature to understand that I was the little kid in that. It was hard on me. And yes, they went through that too, but they made the choice, like, just starting to see the perspective from a different set of eyes. I have a digital course that I call Align. And in that, we talk about emotional echolocating. I call it EEL, which I don't know why that makes me giggle now, but it did. But EEL is emotional echolocating. I've got to check in with the other person to see if I'm safe. That like codependent dynamic. Oh, how are they feeling about me? Like, just like dolphins send out that info to kind of get their whereabouts in their environment, we'll do it until we move out and we're our own adult. I saw a quote the other day that was like, no one's coming to save you. You are the adult to keep you safe. And there was like a kind of a dual thing that happened within my body. I'm like, it like snapped me awake. And then it also was like, wow, okay. It was very empowering and like relieving. So I hope that maybe brought you relief too. It made me think that all relationships are temporary, so I don't get too comfortable. Okay. So that avoidant, getting close, causes pain. So in moments of potential with somebody, you might say, nope, I got to move away. I don't know about them. If I do this, it's going to be just nothing but pain. But ultimately, you're a human being, I would imagine. Call me crazy. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on these days with different, I guess, the aliens, I don't know, or even AI. But I'm going to assume you're a soul here in a human body. And that self-abandonment, even though this is where it can get like, well, I'm not self-abandoning, I'm trying to protect myself. The self-abandonment comes from, and again, you did it as a way to protect yourself. There's no negativity in terms of you're wrong. How could you do that? It's saying, oh, I'm not staying with me in these moments. Uh-oh. That's actually funny. That's a check-in I have. In the Discord, we have a monthly challenge. And this month, we're doing 2 times a day. Well, my phone set it 2 times a day at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. that it'll chime. And then I kind of check in with myself, see where my energy is. And so much in 22 days, I've noticed that my energy is kind of like always like, oh, and it's like, oh, come back to me. And then basically I think about something I appreciate about myself, or maybe even just feeling love for myself, or just feeling my heart, which I encourage y'all to do. It's very powerful. But to get back to your situation about temporary relationships, So that one experience, and again, I'm not saying that you haven't had temporary experiences, I haven't that you haven't seen other people, but if you have a perceptional bias, you're going to pick up all relationships are temporary, and your subconscious is going to block out everything other than relationships are temporary. If I get close, it's dangerous. But your soul wants to deeply connect with other souls. So authentically, you have this need, you want this thing, but in the moment, you're like, nope, I know where that goes. So that moving away from it because of these experiences, this bias, that this is the truth. This is a potential, sure. Yeah, some relationships are temporary and there are very deep, long lasting relationships. And if you think, what if that were true? What if it were possible that two people could learn apart and together and grow deeper and deeper into a connection? Maybe that's scary for you to think about being authentically seen. It was for me. So just starting to say, okay, can I see anybody in the world right now where they have a very loving, long lasting relationship? Is that a truth out there? Interesting. Because that's going to start opening up that potential. But that avoidance, that moving away from intimacy, and I'm not talking about sex or physical stuff, I'm talking about, you know, being seen deeply, intimacy, being seen deeply and connecting in that. Um, you know, seeing this. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I think you know what I'm talking about. That's your work. Because as you work on that and filling your cup and feeling safe, that's where you can more show up for yourself. It's easy to distance myself if I focus on flaws. So I feel like it's my choice when it falls apart instead of being outside my control. Exactly. So that right there is that self-abandonment. And who knows, maybe those are things that you don't want, or maybe it is, but you're going to constantly look for this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. So in the moment, you're not authentically being real with yourself. And I hope that's not harsh, but it is the truth of it, right? Like I wasn't being real with myself when I'm like chasing after people who, if they're disrespecting me, what am I doing? So for you, oh, they're nope, not, they got that thing over there. But it's that perception that they're not safe, but that perspective comes from the past. It's an outdated mechanism to keep you safe. Relationships aren't safe. They will cause me harm. They will cause me pain. So I've got to distance myself. I've got to avoid them. Being close to somebody is not good for me. But as you start to say, okay, my parents went through that, I've had these other experiences, but were there moments that showed me that that person maybe didn't even have the capacity emotionally, that they weren't emotionally mature to actually meet me at the depth? So maybe that was actually an indicator. Okay, am I ready for emotional intimacy? Am I ready to be seen? Do I have fears and feeling I'm inadequate, feeling I'm going to get hurt? Getting more into what is driving that. Oh, flaw, right? Connection isn't about flawless. Did y'all see that little girl she was like meme or gif, whatever? She's like, I'm flawless. My friend and I used to say that all the time. Anyway, anytime I see the word flawless, I hear it in my head. It lives rent free. And the other thing too is like have humor about it, right? We're not like, this is so serious. Obviously it is because it causes a lot of pain. But if we can have a little bit of humor, I'm like, oh my gosh, for 30 years plus, actually probably for longer than that, I was thinking that I wasn't good enough because I didn't fit in these people's molds. Oh, okay. I actually don't want to live that life. Oh my gosh, okay. We're not making fun of ourselves, but we're also being a bit more lighthearted, which makes these harder things a little easier. Not gaslighting, but um, recently with my partner, like, so I still have my trigger moments where I'm like, perceiving whatever. Like for me, it's like threat and protection. And like the other day, it was yesterday, it was like I had a moment, I was tired and I'm like, oh God, there I go again. Self-abandoning. And I like sent some gifts of like, oh my gosh, okay. Still working through it. 95% of my life is so much smoother, so much relieving, so much more rooted in myself. And yes, sometimes I still have my moments, but not being so rigid is really helpful. Are you really I am really live. I'm really, really live. This is me. I am not a robot. This is me talking. Oh, good. Well, hello. Oh, I'm glad. Let that out, Eva, Eva. Let it out. Cry. Let that emotion, that was a big thing for me. When I was younger, I would like never cry, locked down. And now, as me now, whatever iteration this is, like hearing about different things brings tears to my eyes like so quickly because I'm more in touch and more honest with how it makes me feel. And I don't feel ashamed. And I'm not saying that you feel ashamed, but talking about crying, like it's very helpful. Too sensitive to fit for anything in this life? Absolutely not. Sensitivity is beautiful. Now, granted, if you're around people who are very rough and don't know how to respect that, and you don't know how to respect it, it can feel like this is bad, this is wrong. I need to be more rigid. But let me think real quick. I'm trying to think about um, something that requires like actual tangible touch. Okay, so like really what started my healing journey is working with wood. I know that sounds funny, but I started doing woodworking out of desperation. That's for another story. I can walk y'all through that because that was really intense. Basically, like I was coming off still like the devastation from not making the Olympics. I had been so externally seeking in the person I was dating. This was like 10 years ago. Like her validating me, like outsourcing it, that I cheated on her, which is not something I'm proud of, which I was not something that this was 10 years ago, by the way. This is not something that I like thought was good or ever thought I'd do, but I was so desperate for outside validation that I made really poor choices. And that's, we can go into that later. And in the span of a couple months, then a really good friend committed suicide. So it was like this, I didn't even know what was up from down. And I just had all these things happen and like no tools at the time to process them. And when I was woodworking, it helped me to see physically and tangibly the like death and rebirth process and that there are possibilities of second iteration. So I know it was really intense. 2014 was really not fun for me. And then I was living with that person. So I was essentially homeless for like a bit and didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Yeah. And we were actually the friend who did commit suicide. Oops, I feel like YouTube is weird about that word. And so anyway, because so many videos are like unalive themselves, which is like really sad that we can't like be honest and like say it. Not that I'm saying that it's a good thing, but like, having to use words like that, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, we were roommates at the time. So it was like an incredibly devastating and just like life altering couple of months. And basically woodworking helped me on a path to essentially getting deeper and seeing myself deeper, acknowledging what had happened and getting help, which has led me here today. But my whole point for you is that in terms of sensitivity, when I'm feeling a piece, there's a texture element to my finish that's vital. Now, if I had a glove on, so sensitivity is very, very helpful because I can feel different aspects. If I had a glove on that was fireproof, I couldn't feel anything. So that sensitivity, the lack of sensitivity would be a huge detriment. And everybody on this earth, we're souls and we all have special gifts and special jobs, we'll say, or special, roles in this life. And those who are sensitive can help others. I consider myself a little more dense, I guess. I'm more like physical, tangible. Neither are better or worse, but people who are very sensitive and can tap into to the invisible are very helpful to people like me who are learning how to do that in different ways. But sensitivity is not a detriment. Sensitivity is painful around environments that are too rigid and rough. So learning how to guard your sensitivity, but honor it, and then also being in an environment where that sensitivity is honored and safe. So, oh, thank you. Again, I feel like now I'm like this with my light. And like awareness is light. So helping you expand your conscious awareness of the pattern and breaking free is essentially, it took me 3 years to get to be able to say that in a sentence because I didn't know. And like not knowing, you can still go forward and keep going. And I don't know if y'all, oh wow, like look at us go. I love that y'all all showed up today. And I love that y'all are here. And I love you. I'm catching up here. Hang on a second. Okay. I think lightheartedness is possible. We consider our mistakes temporary and their hope on the other side. Yes, there is hope. And again, lighthearted, just it's like a forgiveness. We're a human. Like, how in the world? It's like, go fix the car, take out the engine. It's like, no one taught me how to do that. And to be like, how do you not know? It's like, oh my God, okay, I'm learning. Okay, okay. Like we're in this together. And the more we share and realize, oh, shoot, okay, yeah, I was not equipped with an owner's manual. People around me, I can learn and grow with them and from them. And if there's a judgment too, and if it's real rigid, is that your voice or was that a caretaker early on who was telling you those things? They're not bad people if they were. They potentially could have been doing that to protect you. But is that your own authentic voice? Is my point. Getting close to people freaks me out. It's okay. It could be that people you've been around in the past were not safe, and you learning your discernment of the old pattern, which could feel familiar, and breaking free of that and respecting and honoring yourself to then create a new dynamic with people who are safe. Growing up crying was a sign of weakness. So this is where you can start to really rewire because it's like, okay, my parent was uncomfortable with crying. So maybe they were so suppressed and repressed that um, a little kid crying was wrong. So if you think about it, if you were at a grocery store and you saw an adult being very uncomfortable by a child crying, who would you think was emotionally weak in that moment, in that dynamic? And we're not trying to shame the parent. We're not trying to say you're bad and evil, but it's like, oh, clearly the adult was emotionally too weak. Thank you. Exactly. Excellent job. Sometimes I wish I had one of those little star boards. We're putting a star for everybody on those things. Did y'all have those in school? Maybe that was in church, Sunday school. I don't know, but it was like a little thingy. And now I'm seeing like, oh yeah, I can see why my validation was external. A lot of external motives to like be good. But anyway, emotionally, just out of love. But can you see that okay, maybe all this time I thought that I was too small and I was weak, but really the emotional environment I was in was too small. I have this big capacity. I can feel all these things. And the adults around me couldn't. They had a very small vessel. And maybe that was because they didn't want to do their work. We're not judging them, but okay, wow, I actually am very powerful. I can pick up all these other things. Now think about it with like a radio wave. Like if I had a little walkie-talkie, but my range wasn't very sensitive. I could only pick up me and the house next to me. But a sensitive radio receiver, maybe it could pick up 100 miles. Which one could be more helpful if we're trying to communicate with someone? Well, the one that picks up a broader capacity because it's more sensitive to the information. So these are ways that you just, whoa, that's a huge shift of perspective and value. In a way, I think the child is strong because they're expressing their emotions. Honestly, thank you, mic drop. How brave to allow that emotion to be seen. How brave, how powerful, how strong is that child to feel these things and allow it to come through them. We're rewriting stories all day long. It's like a 4-hour stream. I mean, I'm not against it. That would be interesting. I do see some streamers go 4 hours, and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of intrigued. Definitely notice I gravitate to negative patterns because they're familiar. It's sadly scary to move towards a healthy and nurturing thoughts, and it's not sad. It's normal. It is absolutely normal and valid for it to feel scary. Period. Like even if the pattern in your childhood was totally wild and chaotic, it feels familiar. and new things could feel very, very scary. When I first started making new choices, when I first started having experiences, even in like wonderful, beautiful experiences with my partner, it was scary. I was scared. It was like everything I was ever wanting and more from a person who is incredible, who I like. It's another way too to increase my self worth because I'm like, wow, she's beautiful. She's talented. She's so kind. She has so much compassion. She's so smart. And like, she's talented in like everything, singing, writing, like her intuition. So I had to increase the way I saw myself to be able to receive and resonate. And that was really scary. Being loved by somebody that I regarded so highly, that was scary. Oh no, what if she sees the parts of me that I'm not so proud of? Oh, wow, she sees these and she accepts them and she embraces them and she loves them. Wow. It's like it kind of takes the breath out of you because it's like, again, early on in the live, I was talking about experiences. These experiences that feel unfamiliar. And that's another thing I would say. Is it scary or is it unfamiliar? And it could be both, but maybe putting unfamiliar, unknown, is it just unknown? I don't know what's going to happen. That makes me a little nervous, right? If you can start to say, okay, well, which one is it? Am I scared? Or it makes me a little nervous, a little anxious. I've never done this. Okay, it's saying the ad again. I don't know if it's running ads, but I'm trying to skip them. I don't know if that's working. But yeah, so I don't know if this is making sense. I lost my train of thought because of the ad skip. Um, but just kind of constantly shifting your perspectives. Let's see, what was I saying? I've lost it. She's gone. She's gone. I really did. I'm like, to me, it's literally impossible to even get into relationships. I'm looked out completely, tried changing it, and now I just feel burnt out and exhausted. Okay, so we'll go on. Okay, woo! We are avoiding ads. Okay. This is like the first time where I'm like, do I have to go to the bathroom? Like, this is a thing about how do people do 4-hour lives if they have to go to the bathroom? I don't even know how it works, but I guess I just leave. That feels so I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. So anyway, just really being honest here. Okay. So SD for you, think about when you were a kid. Did you feel seen? Did you feel overlooked by adults? Did you have a lot of siblings and like maybe you were in the middle, maybe the oldest, and all the attention was on somebody else because maybe you were seen as like, oh, you got it, you don't need help or whatever. Or did you get a lot of attention if you were only really hurting or sad or kind of in a chaotic situation? Because these can help you. You're gonna that lack of ability to be seen by others for relationships is it's not the truth of you, it's an echo from your past. So when you learn to resolve that, that's when you can break free of it. Does that make sense? So locked out completely from connection. Okay, there you go. So you resolving that it wasn't because you were not enough or unworthy. Your parents didn't have the tools to treat you the way you needed to be treated. That emotional ignorance, and I'm standing up for you. We also honor your parents. Thank you very much for what you did, what you tried, and I'm here for you. Okay, that little you, that little SD, the emotional neglect or ignorance that a little child would not be acknowledged, would not be. There's some other words. Feel free to add them into the chat if they're coming to you because I'm like, it's not acknowledged. It's like, I feel like it's important to get this word. Don't ask me why. You as a little kid, you're in the house, you're not acknowledged. You're not taken into consideration. That's what it feels. So when you're in a relationship or you're trying to get into a relationship, you're not being taken into consideration of the connection. So what I would say is, are there parts, and again, nothing you're doing is creating behaviors in somebody else, but if you keep getting people who are not considering you, how can you start to say, okay, am I considering myself? Am I present with myself? Do I constantly compare myself? Am I constantly looking out to go and say, okay, if they connect with me, then I'll feel I'm worth considering. Because what you have to do is going to, and again, very painful what you went through. You did not deserve that. I think everyone in this chat agrees that little SD deserve love, deserve like happiness, deserved board games at the table, deserved running around the backyard, being silly, all that good stuff. And to not get it and to be like not considered in your very existence by the people who are supposed to give you these things, that pattern is very deep. And that view of yourself can be very distorted. And distortion is not like bad or evil or, it's just like it's as if the mirror is like we got like cooking oil and we rubbed it on the mirror. We couldn't really see clearly. So that's what we want to do is start to say, okay, I wasn't considered as a kid. My introduction to my own wounds, my introduction to my self-worth was don't consider me. So, I mean, you can see the people here. They're saying, no, every child deserves connection. Hey, Magda. Welcome. We're diving in, just casually talking about, deep childhood neglect. Um, and again, I'm not trying to invalidate that. Like that is incredibly painful. It literally hurts my heart now, today, to think about that little you not getting that connection. And again, if you can start to think, okay, unintended, whatever, what did I need? I didn't get, I was not considered, my basic human emotional needs were not considered. They were never taken into account. I was ignored emotionally. And maybe they gave you attention when you got a good grade or you did good in sports or you cleaned the house or whatever. Some kind of external thing would lead you to believe that the only way you could connect with people is by this outside thing and not considering yourself because you were taught, trained, conditioned, programmed to not consider yourself. So starting to break the pattern would be, okay, are there times where I don't consider myself accidentally, unintentionally? Okay, when you know, maybe if somebody asked me, maybe it's your job, somebody asked you, your boss, like, hey, can you do this? But you had a plan, or maybe you're really tired and you're like, yes, but you're not considering, like, how does that make me feel? And maybe that's part of what you can start to do is, okay, what does consideration look like? Okay, what would that be like if somebody would consider me? How can I do that to myself? Um, Trying to think if there's anything else there. Please let me know, SD, if this is connecting. If you have other questions, we are here for you. Yes, somatic therapy. I'm a huge believer. I think that that's, my goal of the channel is to help you get more consciously aware of your pattern, to start breaking free of it so that you can then start finding the somatic therapist. Somatic therapy is vital because, again, you think about vibration. Vibration is not just thoughts, it's thoughts and feelings. Neville Goddard, the most powerful thing is feelings, and your body is your feelings. Your subconscious is what is magnetically attracting experiences to you. Thinking about, we've been going through different people's patterns here. So somatic therapy is basically processing, healing with the mind by shifting your perspective, by changing that belief, by changing that view of yourself. I mean, in the most simplistic way, which is going to release you from the belief that that's true. And also, it's considering the body. So yes, I do believe somebody had asked thoughts on emotions being stored in the body. Absolutely. There is a website, which let's see if I can get. I don't know what happens to the screen. Is it still recording me as I'm looking something up on my computer here? Okay, let me see. There we are. So this website, you can go to it, and there's going to be a list of um, physical ailments, and that basically, oh, interesting. I guess that's good to know. I'm just like la da da, and it's still on me. But Louise Hayes was also really, really big on that. Gabor Mate talks about different physical ailments. When we repress, when we have this energy, it will manifest different illnesses, different imbalances with different parts of our body. It could be our or internal organs. It could be different joints. It could be, the low back, for instance, is about like your root system, your support, your home, feeling grounded or not supported. Shoulders are about responsibility. So there's a lot of symbolic representation, in my opinion. The liver is about anger. The kidneys are about fear. Um, well, I'm like, oh gosh, that's about all I can remember off the top of my head. I have read in the flows and forms that the heart is like a territorial thing. Talks about deer. So that's why I'm like, this is not making sense. So we'll rewind that. Sorry to confuse you. But somatic therapy basically is going to be somebody in a process where they're, helping you with, the pattern, I'll call it, and allowing work on your body as well to free that energy. From my experience, I work with somebody who did acupuncture and chiropractic work. So they would do the chiropractic based on meridian reads. So that's, Eastern medicine, different meridians, different energy flows or blocks, working with those blocks to free them. And when you do free that energy physically, it actually gives you more awareness. It's kind of like if there was a balloon at the bottom of the pool and say it had like a little message in it and it was tied to a brick. And that somatic therapist is going to kind of try to manipulate and free this energy. And it's kind of like cutting that cord from the balloon to the brick. And that little balloon of energy is going to come to the top of the water. And then you can see it and become aware of it. That's in a very abstract way of how I would describe somatic therapy. So if you're constantly taking in different, and the other thing too is if your body is still responding to 1992, 1995, 1980 in a very, stressful environment, even if it was just like, if it was a quiet environment, but you couldn't really be yourself, if you fear different things would happen if you were yourself, that's a survival state. So that survival state, you're going to be stuck in. So learning how to do the somatic work is teaching your body how to move back into sympathetic nervous system. I believe it's that one, which is going to be rest and digest, which is where you can create, which is where you can do all of this work, see things in a different way. If we were all running away from a lion right now, we wouldn't be like, so then when you were a kid, what happened? Okay, let's process it. All of our energy, all of our blood would actually be going to our limbs so we could get out and survive. So we wouldn't be thinking about our inner world. We would be literally running and, constantly interacting with our outer world. So somatic work can help you learn to regulate your nervous system, which if you think about vibration, energetics, that's going to send out a different energy, not in those lower energy realms. It's going to allow your brain to relax and calm down, which is going to allow you to be more receptive to different perspectives and intelligences, whether it be about your higher self, God, the universe, whatever it is. So yes, information from YouTube and my videos and all that is important, and starting to use somatic therapy, somatic movements online by a trained somatic therapist, a professional, was going to really help your body to regulate. One of the easiest is something called, or it's not something called, it's VU by Dr. Peter Levine. He's a somatic specialist. So for that, all you do is VU. And the reason you're doing that, it's like, what? This is so simple. How in the hell does this work? I do this in my car. Sometimes I'll notice, Magda and I talked about this, that shoulder, my left shoulder kind of, what is this? I'm on guard. I'm trying to respond that something's going to happen, and I'm trying to preemptively see what is, oh, I'm safe. VU, and coming back into my body in my present moment. And the VUing helps to stimulate your vagal nerve, which communicates, I believe, from your gut to your brain that you're safe. So we're just learning, okay, I'm good. Oh, I'm safe. Okay. Okay. to settle back in and shift out of that old story that is unconsciously running constantly. Oh, yeah, Magda, me and you in that left shoulder. Okay. It's great to let it out in a healthy way. And I found out my subconscious is used to give me something to fix, for example, to destroy something. Oh, interesting. I know it is interesting too to like see, and sometimes you might learn from friends or people around you where if they're stuck in a pattern, you're like, oh, okay, we're not judging them or trying to fix them, but it's like, can I learn like, oh, okay, I can see that they're in that pattern and how they're participating to kind of get it going again. Because we can be addicted to negative emotions or like chaos emotions. Because Dr. Joe says we can be addicted to the, like it makes us feel more alive, right? Oh no, there's really bad things happening. We get a jolt of energy because it's like, oh no, the lion's chasing us. I feel alive. But we're not really feeling that. It's like, oh my God, please stop. It's like those gifs you see online where it's like, here's life. And it's like that little kid that's like, ah. But if your only sense of feeling alive is those survival ones compared to those deep feelings of joy, it's going to take a moment to kind of reprogram and feel into those unknowns. Okay, so DJing, during the healing, I cried and apologized to my parents for being born. I wonder how it is possible that I survived. Scapegoat. Yeah, and again, it's so hard to say this therapy versus that therapy. I don't think all therapies are created equal. I think it heavily has to do with the therapist. I think it has to do with the intention, like the game plan. If you were in a situation early on, your body and your mind was there, and they basically collectively just like deviated from your authentic self. So you'll have to train your mind and your body to come back to authenticity. That is basically what somatic work can do. But that voo, just in your car or in the shower can help signal I'm safe. In a lot of different cultures and different things. Chanting, that moan, oming, that's all that same thing, which is tapping into that body's wisdom that you're kind of helping to override that you're in danger. So, okay. Now I'm trying to relax that left shoulder, Magda. Ooh, can you imagine the next like 20 minutes? I'm just vooing. And it might only take like, I guarantee right now, if you just start to voo, voo, wow, and you can feel like when it's kind of off and like when it feels like nice in your chest cavity, just do that right now for like a minute. And see that kind of like, oh, it like tells your body, oh, I'm safe. I'm safe. And I have the power to keep me safe. So I know we're covering a lot. And now I'm back to like, how do you, when people have to pee, I drank too much coffee. Like what happens? You just leave your people? We're just hanging out. I don't know. I think somatic therapy is what I need right now. And there are movements you can do. I heavily encourage you to do the VU. Different breath work can help. Like how can you signal to your body you're safe, but not just tell your body, let your body feel it. And another thing, I mean, there's different ones. I hope that's not hitting the microphone. Different ones where you're kind of, rubbing your chest, different ones where you're like kind of giving yourself a hug. You're literally helping self-soothe your body. Because, I heard recently by Bethany Webster saying that your inner child and your subconscious is the same thing. Your inner child was programmed these subconscious ideas of you. So if that inner child was scared or worried that they wouldn't have their needs met, your body is going to resonate or echo that dynamic. So learning how to override it and bring it present day, and then using your adult conscious mind to resolve and transmute that energy. This isn't something you're like constantly having to, oh no, okay, I got to do this thing and that thing and that thing. There's a point where it will feel like that. But as you're transmuting, you're taking this energy and you're realizing, oh my God, I was a beautiful child. Sensitivity is wonderful. Oh my God, my parents lacked the ability to hold that sensitivity and respect how precious this gift is. And they're, God bless them. Thank you. And I was never bad or too much in this. Wow. It's going to help you shift that there was anything wrong with you or anything bad. And, you might have feelings about that experience as a kid, and that's okay. But you're going to process this and shift that energy by processing it. Transmuting it is getting this thing that has been unresolved, seeing it in a different way so you feel safe and you see yourself as whole and complete. And you don't have to do all this work to kind of deal with the symptoms, right? You're going to go to the source. That's also somatic work. That's the belief I'm working on right now, that I'm deserving of my needs being met. I mean, for one, who taught you you weren't, right? Like, what kind of idea? Like, if you see a dog or a cat or an animal of any kind, I mean, my dream is to have a pet raccoon or a pet squirrel. Okay. If I'm going to be authentic here, let's be real. I just think that would just be so sweet. The raccoons, I mean, that's a little more scary. They've got those claws, but when they do the snacks, that is just, I mean, come on. And then squirrels too. Squirrels, I feel like, is a little more possible, but also the probability is not high if we're being honest here. But anyway, but if an animal was outside your door and you can tell that they're hurt, you wouldn't be like, well, tell me, what are you going to do in the house? Why don't you prove that you're worthy of having more water or having some food? Aren't you going to prove it to me? No, you'd say, oh my God, let me go get them food. Let me go get them water. They need it. Since they have a need, they deserve that need to be met. The need itself is in itself permission for experience, and I know, and I totally hear you and validate you that there was a point of your life where your needs were too much and you didn't deserve them. I hear that. And I want you to start using your adult mind now to see if there was a little baby crying. You would be like, okay, well, and what are you doing for the family? Right? It's like, oh my gosh, the baby's crying. It's saying it has a need. Let me find the need it has. Maybe it needs a diaper change. Maybe it needs milk. I don't know. I don't have children, so I don't know how to problem solve there. But, maybe it needs to be burped. Maybe it's tired. It's calling out for a need. And the automatic thing is, obviously, it deserves the need to be met. It has a need. So the deserving is in the desire. Now, getting clear on your need is pivotal, because you're like, well, I need that relationship. Well, no, you need to learn how to be with yourself and value yourself first. Then you can actually have the capacity to receive it from outside of you. So if you're like, well, no, I keep finding these people, I have a need for a relationship and connection, but these people don't value me. Well, is all of your worth in proving that you are valuable in their opinion? So you can see how you can, it like it is and it isn't. You have to kind of shift it a bit to get to the root of what you're really looking for. Oh my God. I need to talk to your grandpa. He tamed wild squirrels? I didn't even know that was possible. Wow. I mean, the more you know. Oh, this is amazing. I can't wait to tell my partner. It's like, oh my gosh, guess what I found out today? We can tame them. Your grandpa needs to, I hope is, I don't know if he's still alive, but maybe it's epigenetically in you. We need YouTube channels. I guess maybe not. That's not necessarily good for the squirrel world. Never mind. Never mind. Maybe I shouldn't learn how to tame wild squirrels, but that is so cute to think about the process and how sweet your grandpa is. I have the belief hardwired in me that love is dangerous and not available to me. Okay. The belief comes from an experience. So at one point, love was dangerous and it wasn't available. If you can just start to see that that is what you experienced and you didn't have an ability to keep yourself safe because you were a kid. Okay. Things have changed. You're an adult. You're growing emotionally. You're growing in your awareness. You're raising your consciousness. If we were if we were in New York at the ground floor, it would be hard. Like, we see all these people, but we're at the same level. We can't really see things. If we went to the next level, we could see things better. The next level, we could see things even easier. And it would get easier to start to navigate the higher your awareness or your consciousness gets. So the belief that, I went on the wrong line here. The belief that it's dangerous. So pain happened when you connected. Pain happened And even thinking about, okay, if you loved your mom, I believe, I'm a little bit sorted. I'm trying to remember. Oh, that's right. Okay. Sorry, I had cross wires with the divorce comment, but yours was not getting that connection. So, I mean, think about what dangerous things happened when you were like, "Oh, mom, dad, let's connect," or whatever that looked like. Were you seen as too much? Did they get mad at you because maybe they were overwhelmed with work and maybe they felt guilty? And so then they were like, "What's wrong with you?" Because they couldn't look at themselves. And again, they're human. That's understandable. And also, you're a kid. You deserve that. So, like, having that, like, what the hell, mom, dad? Like, and you don't have to necessarily have this conversation with them right now, like calling them, but having it within yourself, like, yeah, like, I wasn't wrong for having a need. Them overreacting potentially, yeah, if they're tired because of their own decisions, if they're overwhelmed because of their life and they're acting like you're the problem, like that's very emotionally immature. Like just straight up. That doesn't make them a bad person and it doesn't make them emotionally available. So trying to see, oh, okay, my parents didn't have that and you know, you do. I believe that because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. So if you exist and I exist and the other people in this exist, maybe there is a potential for certain people for love to be safe when they have this space. Love is safe with emotionally available people, and it's available to you with emotionally available people. First, you've got to learn how to be more emotionally available to yourself by realizing in the moment if somebody rejects you or doesn't acknowledge you, oh, okay, this is that old pattern. I love me and I'm making new choices. Okay, what can I do right now? What do I need? I want a little acknowledgement. Maybe I have a friend. Maybe I want to go treat myself to this. Or maybe, how can you take that energy where you're constantly looking for this person's approval or sense of validation from outside of you and say, oh man, that's that old pattern again. Okay, I'm back to me. I don't know what to do and I don't know how to do it. And every time I say no to the old thing, I'm saying yes to me. I'm making a new path. So I hope that makes sense. Oh my gosh. I love your grandpa. Oh my God. He named all the squirrels Buddy. What was your grandpa's name? Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? He's like, hello, squirrel. Here's a buddy. Yep. Hello, squirrel. Here's another buddy. Oh my gosh. That's funny. Thank you for the clarifier. Um, Not to get too deep, but I had colic as a baby and was thrown into cribs for crying too much. So I guess that's where it probably stems from. Oh my God. God bless you, Ted. Thank you, Ted, for your um, your model of kindness and patience to this world. Um, and think about Ted, and I know that it was your grandpa and not your immediate caregiver, but like you know your parents being overwhelmed by something that was going on with you when you needed help the most doesn't make you too much or a problem. They made a choice to bring you into the world. And I know that that can get like, well, actually, I signed this whole contract. I don't remember. I don't know how it works. I'm not saying you're needed either, but I'm trying to say like, let's be in our bodies now. But if your parents signed up for it and they were like, oh man, this is harder than I thought, you weren't the issue there. Them not having that space is the issue. Like they were overwhelmed by the choices they made. Okay, but that doesn't make it your problem. And if they it's understandably we internalize our parents' deficiencies because we see them as our sole like possibility to survive life. If you don't think your parents know best and can keep you alive, you're screwed because you don't know how to do it. So you've got to say, okay, they know best. Even emotionally, unconsciously, we do that. So if they think I was too much, if they complained about me, if they whatever, they must know better. So it's my fault. It totally makes sense. But now, as an adult, you can say, oh, wow, yeah, my parents were overwhelmed by their situation, not by me. My parents were overwhelmed by a baby who cried for their needs because the baby was sick and needed help. It was not you in that, right? Your birth caused them a problem. They made a choice, and taking that, like you're holding the burden that's not yours to carry. So finding people who like cling to you and think that their problems. Hang on a second. My nose started to feel weird, or my whatever that is, throat. I don't know. Who am I to say what's happening? But anyway, um, but do you find people who emotionally like put their shit on you, or like, here, you figure it out, right? It's like your responsibility. Or even like physically, sometimes you might carry more weight because it's like, and not necessarily, but like these are all kind of symbolic representations of this early on, like I was too much. Or you might not be able to be weight because you feel like you're trying to be smaller so that you don't overwhelm people. Like, please, I'm sorry I'm doing this. And it's like, no, like your parents made an agreement to bring life to the world, and if they no longer wanted to do that, you might actually also find people who maybe hypocritical. They say yes and then change the answer later. Those are kind of energies that I would assume like potentially could be part of your dynamic. And then if anyone, before I forget, and I'm probably going to wrap it up soon, this has been wonderful. Oldest child, and I think that when we talked one-on-one years ago, you came up to that conclusion to take on burdens that aren't mine. So your big lesson is, this is mine, that is theirs. And going through those uncomfortable feelings is going to feel guilty. You might feel like you're selfish. I know to do anything else is going to be abandoning me. And I know that's more painful than whatever this unknown thing is. Okay. I am worthy of having my needs. I'm worthy of having my own energy. It's not selfish. I'm learning to be in my own. And when I'm in my own, I can authentically connect to other people because I'm emotionally available. I'll find people and attract people who are also emotionally available. And the people who are emotionally immature and don't understand this, I'll have compassion with them and realize that their limited opinion doesn't mean that I have to interact with that, because you're raising your awareness and your consciousness level. But the more and more you do that, okay, what's mine? What's others? It's building that autonomy and not being so enmeshed. And when you do that, you can connect. And if you enmesh, then you'll be dependent and you won't be actually able to be seen, which limits your ability to connect deeper, which I believe is really a deep need for all of us, is to authentically, deeply connect and be seen by other people. And when you step away to be seen, that's when you can really start to have that. Wonderful. And that's another thing too. Yeah, I am right now doing one-on-one sessions. So if anyone is interested, I am offering those. I did I don't even know if I put a link. Oh gosh. Oh boy. I'll put a link here now. I know it's still seeing me. Let's see. What am I doing? I think also too, I'm like afraid to go to the wrong page and then like a video starts playing, it like blasts you. Okay. Okay, almost there. Okay. Maybe I already put it in there. I don't know. But if you're interested in like doing this one-on-one, fill out the form and we'll go to it. But thank y'all so much for being here. This was a very disconfirming experience to show up and have this without having to say some big announcement and fear no one's going to come, but to show up for myself. And again, I hope my example helps inspire you, to that we can do hard things. We can learn to trust ourselves. We can learn to discern and show up better for ourselves so that we can connect to ourselves deeper and ultimately have deeper connection with others. So we're doing it, guys and gals, and everyone's. Somebody said something the other day that it was like encompassing all genders. I just thought it was, I wish I could remember, but clearly I'm not. But everybody who showed up today, all the pronouns, all the genders, all the hearts, and really it's soul, right? We're connecting on soul level. Different events made us feel the same way. Probably. It was glad to be here. I am happy to be here, and yeah, I'll have to share, Magda, about the in the Discord, the very interesting other big disconfirming experience that I recently went through. So that proves that when we do our inner work, the outer world shifts. So Anyway, well, I love all of y'all, and you're never forget you are deserving and you're worthy, and anything that stands in the way of that is just a distortion and an illusion, and you can learn to step out of it and break free of it and have an entirely different dynamic that you deserve, so you can create more of what you want in your life. So until the next time, yeah, sending you love, and also to, well, never mind. Here I go. The wheels are starting to fall off. I've been talking too long, but much love to you all. Thank you for hopping on and spending this time with me, and I'll see y'all again in the future. Bye.